start off with China while we're on the subject of China. Many in this country think we're going to go to war with China. There's a lot of talk about it, there's a lot of chatter. If China goes after Taiwan, there's going to be hell to pay. We hear these people in Congress all the time, people like Lindsey Graham, who constantly go on the news rounds talking about war with China. Many people on the right who are very anti war when it comes to Russia. The minute you mention China, they start foaming at the mouth. So we see there's a lot of China and their spy, they got the spy balloons that are flying over the United States. They're coming after us and we have to be very leery about China. There's a lot of people who feel that way. You might even be one of them. But there was a clear indication last week. There were meetings that were had between Xi Jinping and American CEOs. And it became really obvious to me anyway, as I was watching the coverage in the business circuit about these meetings that don't really ever make it on the other circuits, because this is business, it's boring, blah, blah, blah. But it was clear. We will never be going to war with China. Those of you who are foaming at the mouth, hoping that we go to war with China one day, you want to put them in their place, you want America to remain strong, big, and bad. Yeah, it's just never going to happen. We're never going to war with China. And even if China does go and try to take Taiwan by force, no matter what the politicians say here in the United States, we're not going to war with China. It's just not going to happen. Let me just go ahead and play for you. This is a clip from Bloomberg News talking about the meeting that happened last week between Xi Jinping and top level CEOs. Now, listen to the names of the CEOs who were attending this meeting in China. Watch this.
Yeah, we had gotten wind last night that there was be a senior leader, and that obviously means Xi Jinping was going to be meeting the U.S. delegation, not only of business executives, but also from academia. And sure enough, it happened today. We don't know the precise details of the talk. We do know that at least Blackstone Steve Schwartzman was a participant. We're still trying to get confirmation of others. But we do know that Apple's Tim Cook was there for the CDF. We know that Pfizer's Albert Bourla was there, also the heads of FedEx and also Chubb. A number of other executives were there meeting with Chinese officials. But keep in mind, Tom, usually at the CDF, they meet with the premier. This time, again, Li Qiang was sort of sidelined. He didn't have the meeting with them, much like we saw at the National People's Congress. Li Qiang did not have his annual press conference. It was Xi Jinping who came in today and met face-to-face with the U.S. executives.
Okay, so that is important, right? Xi Jinping himself met with these executives. We're going to go over why. That has more to do with China's economy, but also, I think, for geopolitical strategic reasons. So if you listen to the names of the people who showed up, Blackstone was there, right? Tim Cook was there, Pfizer, FedEx was there. So all of these huge American corporations. In fact, here's some pictures of Xi with the CEOs. Let me just show you. So these are the various different groups that were there. Here's the pictures of these guys. Look at all of them smiling big. All of that money to be made in China. 1.4 billion people in China, is that right? So and they're becoming a consumer economy. So there's a lot of reasons for these businessmen to be smiling doing business in China. Let's go over this article from Financial Times. This is just why we're never going to be going to war with China. We're too entangled with them. With business. American CEOs will never allow it. They will never let us go to war with China, even if you want to, even if you think we should. It's just never, ever going to happen. It's one thing for U.S. businesses to pull out of Russia. There's not a lot of business there, and they don't even have that many people. Russia has half the population of the United States. China has 5 times the population of the United States. And we're already very much in bed with them business-wise. Too deep to detangle, I should say. These American businesses started getting in bed with China 30, 40 years ago. They are deeply, deeply there. They are not getting out. They're married, and it's for life. It is for life. Their businesses would tank if we went to war with China and China forced all of these American companies out, which China can do because they do still have a very centralized system that many of these CEOs complain about because of that threat that China could just one swipe of the hand and just eliminate entire American businesses from their economy. So they have to play nice with China, which comes with its own risk, and we're going to go over that risk. But let's go over this article here from the Financial Times. China's economy has not peaked and its growth prospects remain bright, Xi Jinping told visiting U.S. chief executives on Wednesday as Beijing sought to revive foreign investor confidence in the world's second largest country. meeting the group of about 20 U.S. business figures who included Chubb's Evan Greenberg, Blackstone's Steven Schwartzman, Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Xi insisted that Beijing remained committed to reform, said China's reforms will not stall and our opening up will not stop, he said, according to state media. The meeting, which included a group photo, comes as concern is growing among China's trading partners that Beijing is investing heavily in manufacturing to overcome a deep property slowdown, leading to oversupply and potential dumping in international markets. China has set a growth target of 5% this year, the same as last year's figure, and the lowest in decades, but analysts believe it would be difficult to achieve without an increase in domestic demand. Just so you know, so China's their growth last year was 5.2% of their GDP. This year it was projected to be about 4.6. Xi at this meeting last week says, no, we're going to still aim for 5%. The US is like at 2.4%. Okay. So China has all the people, China has all the growth. Even if China is slowing down in growth, they still have double the growth that the United States has and 5 times the people. Goes on to say that China's development, having overcome various difficulties and challenges, has not collapsed in the past, nor will it peak now, Xi told the executives. The attendees, who also included Bloomberg chair Mark Carney and FedEx's Raj Subramaniam, were in the capital this week to attend the China Development Forum, Beijing's flagship annual business conference. So these guys show up smiling every year to China to shake hands and to continue to do business. So there's just no way that any of these American CEOs are going to allow any sort of war ever with China. So in a way, it was comforting to see these meetings happen because I thought, well, there is just, look, the businesses control the politics in this country. The politicians can, ruffle their feathers and posture all they want on TV to try to get voters riled up for votes. But in the back smoky rooms with their cigars and their scotch, they're telling these CEOs, don't worry, we're never going to war with China. So they're lying to us. They lie to us flat out to our face. They rile you up. They make you think China's this big bad meanie because the military industrial complex needs to continue to have bases built all over. They want to continue to expand NATO-like alliances like they're doing with Australia. They need to continue doing this. They need bases. They need weapons. They need to make you believe that we're going to be going to war with a country 5 times our size when it is absolutely never going to happen. Let me just show you this other article from Investopedia. American companies are worried about China's slowing economy. Here's what they're saying. So there you've got CEOs worried about China going from a 5.2% GDP growth to 4.6. They're worried about that. Which 4.6 is still double the US economy. But they're worried about it because it's going to be a loss of billions of dollars for them. Imagine if we were to have gone to war, if we go to war with China and China says, all right, that's it, you're all cut off. No growth whatsoever. None for you is what they would say to all these CEOs. They would lose billions. American companies would go completely under. There's just no way. So they're worried about just a slowing economy, which is still a booming economy. War would absolutely be devastating. Saying that some companies like Apple, Starbucks, they posted drops in revenue in the final quarter of 2023, in part because of lagging sales in China. At the same time, others like Marriott International and Applied Materials have strong forecasts for sales in the country. So goes on and kind of goes through each company. Apple, smartphone sales were down across the board in China, and Apple reported its sales in China fell by 13% in its December quarter, which CEO Tim Cook said could be more closely tied to its sales of devices other than the iPhone. Ford Motor Company delivered a strong earnings report. Its forecast losses as much as $5.5 billion on its line of electric vehicles, with weakness in China playing a role as the company plans fewer investments in the country. Starbucks says that they are feeling the pressure from China's economy. While some stores were up 10% over year in the December quarter, the average ticket for Chinese sales was down 9%. Marriott, though, is saying, oh, no, we're doing great. Their revenue is up because of travel, people showing up post-COVID. HSBC, a British-based financial institution, said its earnings are also up. They said despite losses, they're not forecasting any additional downside for its Chinese associates. And chip manufacturing equipment maker Applied Materials reported February 15th that revenue from China jumped 45% in its fiscal first quarter. There's no indication that such sales are ready to slow down in the country, executives said. So, chip making big in China. Yeah. So, look, I mean, this is on one hand, it's excellent news when I watch these business meetings happen, and I just look, wanted to share this with you that we're never going to war with China because of this. No American business is going to sacrifice billions and billions of dollars because Lindsey Graham has a hard on for war with China. It's just not going to happen. Now, the downside. Let's get to the downside and the danger. The danger is China has a very different culture than the United States. They're not into free speech like we are as much. They're not into the same freedoms that we enjoy in our American culture. And as these executives continue to get more and more in bed with China, and as they get greedier and greedier, they're going to cave to certain, China's going to make certain requests, and those requests are going to be antithetical to American values. And these company heads are going to find that it's easier to implement these requests across the board rather than just isolated to China only. So they're going to then implement those same requests even in the United States. So we may find that as these companies' greed outweighs their love for American freedom and American values, we may find that we go up against not against China, but against the greed of our own elites, the greed of our CEOs and businesses who will sell American values off for profit. And that is something we absolutely should be wary of. We should be worried when athletes can't speak their minds if they want to speak their minds because they're endorsed by an athletic brand that manufactures in China, and China is upset about what maybe that athlete wants to say. And so they dangle the money. And we now know that money, is a massive, massive motivator for our political class, for our culture, businesses. We saw this during the pandemic with the mandates of vaccines. We see this with Israel and the money, the absolute monetary influence that AIPAC has over our politicians and groups and people like AIPAC. And the Chinese are no different on that. So we do need a safeguard, but it's not just about China. It's not about targeting China. It's about targeting the money in our system. It's about targeting the greed, the culture of greed in America that seems to replace and have outweighed the culture of free speech, freedoms, American values. That's what we need to fight against. It's our own family selling us out. And we have to be really leery of that. And we have to start discussing how we can change course and steer the ship in the right direction to where our political class and American businesses work on behalf of the best interest of building America, building a great America, rather than building a great bank account for themselves. So we got to be leery of that. But the good news is we're never going to go to war with China. The bad news is we are being sold out, but we're being sold out by our own. And if China takes advantage of that, you can't blame them. We can only blame ourselves, and we should be blaming ourselves. And that's where we need to be pointing the finger and placing the entire spotlight on ourselves, our political class, our elites, the establishment. That's who we need to be worried about more than any outside country and outside influence.